Welcome to day 11 of the Advent Stitch Along. We are on our final 2 days of our project, and all we have remaining is our text. Today, the focus is our first line, Let Every Heart. We will continue to use our size 5 needle, but we'll switch over to using color 729. That's our beautiful golden color we have here. And we're going to be using 3 strands of floss. This is our first time splitting floss, so let me take a second to show you how to do that. To start, you're going to pull 1 arm length of floss, just like we normally do. Again, you want to start at the number end of your skein. Once you've cut that, you don't want to tie it just yet. What you want to do is gently flatten one of the ends of your floss until you can see all 6 strands. Once you can see all 6 strands, gently pull apart 3 and 3, because this time we're using 3 strands. So we have 3 here on the left and 3 here on the right, and we're going to just gently pull them apart from one another. You don't want to go too fast with this, because if you do, it will get a little tangled up. All right, so now I have 3 strands and 3 strands. I'm going to put one of those 3 strands aside because I'm going to use it when I run out of my first 3 strands. So now I can tie off and use it as normal. All right, so I have my needle threaded and I'm ready to start stitching. Again, we're going to be using a back split stitch on our text here. And all that is just 1 back stitch, and then you're going up half a stitch and splitting into your first stitch that you made. So with text, one of the things I always like to do is similar to a satin stitch, always start from the same direction. For text, I always want to start at the bottom. So for this vertical line here for L, we're going to start at the bottom of it and go up. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to start right here at the bottom. I'm going to go up just a little bit, because I do want to try and fit maybe about 3 stitches here for that L, that vertical line. And I'm going to go half a stitch length forward and split a previous stitch. I'm going to do it one more time for the top of the letter. And now I can come do this horizontal line. This will probably only, this will take 2 stitches. Now I am going to split this into that very first stitch I made, not in the middle, but at the bottom of it. And then make 1 more stitch here. With text, you do really want to just take your time, because it is one of the biggest things you look at in your piece. And so if by the time you get to the end of it, you look at it and you're not happy with it, then you're not going to be happy with the overall design. So just take your time, slowly work through it, so that you don't feel rushed through the process. So now we're going to start at this E, and I'm going to do my vertical line first, and then I'll come back and work on those 3 horizontal lines. Hey friends, I'm having to do this after the fact, so sorry if the audio is not quite as good as the video audio, but I wanted to come on here and give you a quick disclosure. I was not happy with that L after I kept stitching it, but for the sake of time, I just kept going. Then I was unhappy with the E, and I knew if I kept going at that point, I was not going to be a very good example to you all. So as you're about to see, I ended up taking out all of those stitches.
but what I did not think would happen was that it was going to rub away most of my ink by doing that. Thankfully, I was able to see fine enough to fix the stitches, but I wanted to give you a twofold warning, so to speak. One, take your time. Do not rush through this text. It really should take you a full 30, 45, maybe an hour to do. Take it in sections if you need to, but just know that you need to take your time doing it. Number two, if you see even one stitch that looks not quite right, go ahead and remove it and try again. Because if you get into the position I got into, you'll end up removing too many stitches at once, and it could possibly remove your pattern lines. If that happens to you, please know I want to make that right for you. So email me, send me a message, whatever needs to happen. If your pattern just completely gets messed up, please reach out to me. Okay, friends, one last thing. Apparently, in my pure panic of things aren't going well, I forgot to actually explain how to stitch the E when I was doing it again. So let's go over it. Again, because we have a vertical line just like our L, we're going to do 3 back split stitches. I want to keep these 3 back split stitches anytime I come across a vertical line in this piece. So when I get to the T, 3 back split stitches. When I get to even the slightly diagonal lines of the V, I'll do the same thing there for the one vertical line in the R, and so forth. So just try to always keep that pattern of 3 back split stitches. So now that I've got that vertical line done, I'm going to go ahead and stitch the 3 horizontal lines in the letter E. The first one I'm going to do is the top line. It's going to take 2 stitches. That second stitch is going to be pretty tiny, but I do want to give it a little bit of a fuller look, so that's why I'm going to give it 2 stitches. Next, I'm going to stitch that middle line. That middle line is only 1 stitch, and I am going to actually use my needle to kind of slip it under that vertical line we already have there. That will just help it to lay a little bit flatter, and you'll do this again when you get to the other E's in the piece. All right, and again with this bottom horizontal line, I'm going to take it in 2 stitches. They're tiny, but 2 stitches, so it helps give it a little bit of a fuller look. Okay, let's get back to the video.
All right, so we are at our letter T now, and we need to stitch our vertical line first. Again, taking it with 3 stitches, and then we will do the horizontal line above that. You do want to be careful. Ooh, loose strand. You do want to be careful as you are stitching. It is easy to let your hand rest on your fabric, especially as you are trying to put your needle down, like at this point right here. Um, and I am already seeing a little bit of fading that I'm not sure I've noticed in the past. It's not going to cause me to not be able to see what I'm stitching or anything, but it is just something to be aware of if you are rubbing your hand too much here while stitching, that you could cause some issues. All right, so I have my 3 vertical lines. I'm going to take this top in 2 stitches here. So that first one needs to come a little bit over the midline, so that when I split it, I'm splitting it right as where the vertical and horizontal line meet. All right, we have finished the word let, and now we need to do every heart. I'm going to go ahead and start stitching this. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, but please look at the timestamps below if you don't want to keep watching, and at least stop at the letter R that I'll make a note of again in the timestamps, because that does get a little bit trickier just because of a more enclosed space. So come back and make sure you watch that portion right there. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and speed up the rest of the video. One quick note to make for this V here is that when you get to this little part where the two stitches need to meet, rather than splitting your stitch right on top, I want you to kind of slide your needle under this stitch so that the two stitches don't lay on top of one another too heavily and make that section too thick. All right, so we're now at the little loop here in the letter R. What I want you to do is, as you're stitching this, kind of think as if you are on a racetrack and you are on the outside edge, so the largest portion of the racetrack. That's how I want you to stitch this part of the letter, so that way you are not enclosing too much on the letter, but instead you're leaving enough of a gap like of in the middle area so that your R doesn't just enclose on itself. It's not too much of a problem with this letter. It gets to be bigger problems with smaller letter E's and sometimes R's because they have those little loopies at the back of them if it's a cursive R. But it is just something to be aware of so that you don't accidentally enclose on yourself. You are also going to be making a few more stitches than you have been making just because you've got to get all the way around that R. And you can't do that in just 3 stitches like we've been doing for most of those, at least vertical letters. All right, so right here we have an option to make one more stitch. I think I will, to help enclose that R. I could, when I do this little footer that's coming off of the R, I could maybe enclose it going that diagonal direction, but I think I'm just going to close it right here. Now this little letter right here can be a bit of a pain. You do need to stitch 2 stitches in it, and you need to kind of slip this first one under those other stitches. So that's where the first one is, and then your second one is going to come out a little bit and then split here. All right, with our Y, it's similar to with our V. When you get to that middle cross section, you do want to kind of slip your needle under the stitch so that they don't lay too heavily on one another. All right, friends, thank you for stitching along with me and for being patient with the little mistake I have in the beginning. I think the text is always one of the hardest things to stitch for anyone, whether it's a beginner or even someone advanced like me, and trying to do it in this time limit is definitely hard. So take your time with it. I think I got this done in 30 minutes. I probably would have preferred to spend an hour on it just because text is something that really should take your time and full concentration, and not necessarily standing up and trying to record it for a 30-minute video. So again, thank you for being patient with some of my mistakes that I've made in this, and I'm sure yours looks amazing. But once you have completed your first line of text, you are done for today. So come back tomorrow and we will finish our second line, which I will also say is much easier. Prepare him room. So see you then.